We are delighted that you have taken the opportunity to join us. So prepare yourselves for this week's teaching and equipping session. Get ready to be educated, equipped, and set free as you listen to this week's broadcast. And thank you for joining us.
Hello, 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 Dream family. How are you doing? I am so excited about the broadcast tonight. I am going to try to keep this for under 30 minutes, but I have a prophetic message that I'm going to deliver. Part of this message is for the ones that God has hidden. So I have a message for you. I have a message to those who are called to these individuals. And then I have a message to those who are supporting or surrounding these individuals. So I'm going to deliver that message this afternoon, tonight, on this broadcast. So before we get started, I am Cunningham. I am, of course, with the DREEMM Team Cincinnati. DREEMM stands for Deliverance, Restoration, Education, and Empowerment for Me Ministries. We are located in Cincinnati, Ohio at 636 Northland Boulevard, Cincinnati, Ohio. Our email address, just in case you want to reach out to us or contact us, you can email us at dream002@gmail.com. You can also visit our website, which is www.dreemm.org. We are a deliverance ministry here in Cincinnati. If you would like to go through deliverance, you can definitely sign up for that on the website and fill out the packet. There is some information that we do request just to take a deep dive into your history and background as we get prepared for the deliverance training and session that we will conduct. And so this is where you would go to do that. I am going to get into tonight's message because, as I said, we want to keep this to 30 minutes if possible, but lots of information to cover. So I am going to start with Judges 2. And if you can join me in Judges 2, I'm going to make this as quick as possible going through this information because I absolutely want to get into the message for tonight. So first of all, Judges 2, we are at verse 6. And I'm just going to summarize it just a little bit and then read verse 10. Before verse 10, we have Joshua who passes. And the Israelite people, and Joshua passed at 110 years old. I'm actually at verse 8. And they buried him in the land of his inheritance in the hill country of Ephraim, north of Mount Gash. After the whole generation had been gathered to their ancestors, another generation grew up who knew neither the Lord nor what he had done for Israel. And so because they were not teaching, this is who God is, and they were not sharing this information and training these children up, they had no idea where they came from. They had no idea of the history of what God had done for their people. They had no idea of the captivity that their people were in. So they start making some of the same mistakes that the former generations made. And then they start serving other idols. So in 11, it says, then the Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord and served Baal. They forsook the Lord and the Lord God of their ancestors who had brought them out of Egypt. They followed and worshiped various gods of the peoples around them. They aroused the Lord's anger because they forsook him and served Baal and the Ashereths. In his anger against Israel, the Lord gave them into the hands of the raiders who plundered them. And so because they were disobedient, God gave them over to the raiders. And of course, like it said, they took everything from them. And so what ended up happening here is a cycle. That's what you're going to find in chapter 2, is the children of Israel would go back into captivity. They would cry out to the Lord. The Lord would send a judge at that time to deliver them up out of captivity. And then they would go back into sinning. And what they would do is sometimes they would wait till the judge passed away. Sometimes it would happen immediately. And the people of the Israelites would be free from captivity. They would be free from bondage. They would be free from anything for as long as the judge was alive. Then once the judge passed away, the people would go back into sinning even worse than they did before. They would go into captivity again, and then another judge. Then they would cry out to God, and then God would send another judge. If you could turn with me to Judges 3. We're going to read, actually, I'm sorry, let me go back to Judges 2 because there's one thing I want to read. If you look at the 20th verse, Judges 2:20, it says, therefore the Lord was very angry with Israel and said, because this nation has violated the covenant I ordained for their ancestors and has not listened to me, I will no longer drive out before them any of the nations Joshua left when he died. So I'm not going to drive anybody else out. None of the Mennonites, none of the any of the other people who have come against them. I'm not going to do this because they keep being disobedient. 22 says, I will use them to test Israel and see whether they will keep the way of the Lord and walk in it as the ancestor did. The Lord had allowed those nations to remain. He did not drive them out at once, but giving them into the hands of Joshua. All right. If we go to Judges 3, I want us to go to Judges 3. We're going to read 1 and 2. 1 and 2 says, these are the nations the Lord left to test all of those Israelites who had not experienced any wars in Canaan. He did this only to teach warfare to the descendants of the Israelites who had not had previous battle experience. And so he left those other people there to teach them a lesson. You have not learned warfare, you haven't learned to battle, and you are disobedient. So I'm going to use the Canaanites and all the Amorites and all of these people, the Hittites. I'm going to use these people to help you, 1, learn to fight, and 2, to learn to see if you're going to be obedient to me or are you going to do your own thing? Are you going to continue to move in the way that you've been moving? And so that was really what it was about. Now, I want you to move with me to where we're actually going to go for tonight. We're going to go from Judges 6. And there was some revelation that came out of Judges 6. So I'm going to go ahead and start with Judges 6. Let's start with 7, verse 7, Judges 6 and 7. When the Israelites cried out to the Lord because of Midian, he said unto the prophet who said, this is what the Lord, the God of Israel says. I brought you up out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. I rescued you from the hand of the Egyptians, and I delivered you from the hand of the oppressors. I drove them out before you and gave you their land. I said to you, I am the Lord your God. Do not worship the gods of the Amorites in whose land you live, but you have not listened. What God did was he used the Amalekites. I cannot say that word. Having troubles with it. And the Midianites and the Amalekites and the other Eastern people to invade the country. So where the Israelites were, he used those people to invade where they were. And so they oppressed them so much that the people could not have, if they had any cattle, if they had any land, if they had any produce that grew, anything, they would take whatever the people had, the Israelites had, because they oppressed them and held them down. And it was because of their disobedience to God. It was because of them not listening. It was because of them just rebelling against God. It was because of them worshiping other gods. When God sent them into the promised land, he said, I'm sending you in to take over. You are going to take captive all the people who were there, and this is going to be your land. I'm promising this to you. But they were not to worship any of the gods of the people that they encountered. Well, what they did was they went in, but they started worshiping their gods. So they were overtaking them, but they were taking up some of their rituals and some of their beliefs. And because of that, this is why they ended up in captivity. And so that's where we're picking up here. So verse 11, the angel of the Lord came and sat down under the oak in Ophrah that belonged to Joash in the Abizarite, where his son Gideon was threshing wheat in a wine press to keep it from the Midianites. So I'm hiding, he again is in a wine press and he's hiding the wheat. He's hiding it from the oppressors, and he doesn't want them to know what he has, because if they knew, they would take it. When the angels of the Lord appeared to Gideon, he said, the Lord is with you, mighty warrior. That is what the angel of the Lord said to Gideon. Pardon me, Lord, Gideon replied him at verse 13. But if the Lord is with us, Why has all of this happened? So many times in ministry, we hear that often from people who feel like they're being oppressed. They feel like, if God's with me, if God loved me, if God cared about me, if God was for me, if God wants the best for me, if God really cared about us, then why are we going through hardship? Why are we going through difficult times? Why are we having challenges? Why am I feeling like, why did this, all of this stuff, why did this happen to me? If God really cared about me, why is this happening? And this is exactly what we find Gideon saying. Where are all of his wonders that our ancestors told us about when they said, did not the Lord bring us up out of Egypt? But now the Lord has abandoned us and given us over into the hand of the Midian. And sometimes, often when you're going through challenges, you don't recognize that it was their disobedience. It was your disobedience. It was my disobedience that sometimes led us to that hardship. We don't understand that it's consequences for their actions. So what Gideon is saying right now is, God abandoned us. We didn't do nothing. Why this happened to us? And he done gave us over. So God has turned his back on us. He's abandoned us. Verse 14, it says, the Lord turned to him and said, go in strength you have and save Israel out of the Midian's hands. Am I not sending you? Pardon me, Lord, Gideon replied, but how can I save Israel? My clan is the weakest in Manasseh, and I am the least in my family. I am the youngest. Verse 16, the Lord answered, I will be with you, and you will strike down the Midianites, leaving none alive. Gideon replied, if now I have found favor in your eyes, give me a sign that you are really talking to me. Please do not go away until I come back and bring back my offering and set it before you. And the Lord said, I will wait until you return. Gideon went inside, prepared a young goat from the Ephraim of flour, and he made bread without yeast, putting the meat in a basket. It is brought in a pot. He brought them out and offered them to him under the oak. The angel of God said unto him, take the meat and the unleavened bread, place it on this rock, and pour out broth. And Gideon did so. Then the angel of the Lord touched the meat and the unleavened bread, and with the tip of his staff that he had in his hand. Fire flamed from the rock, consuming the meat and bread, and the angel of the Lord disappeared. When Gideon realized that it was the angel of the Lord, he exclaimed, alas, sovereign Lord, I have seen the angel of the Lord face to face. But verse 23, but the Lord said to him, peace, do not be afraid. You are not going to die. So Gideon built an altar to the Lord there and called it the Lord is peace. To this day, it stands in Ephraim of the Abiezrites. 25, that same night, the Lord said to him, take the second bull from your father's herd, the one 7 years old. Number 7. Tear down your father's altar to Baal and cut down the Asherite pole beside it. Then build a proper kind of altar to the Lord your God on the top of its heights. Using the wood of Asherite pole that you cut down, offer the second bull as a burnt offering. So Gideon took 10 of his servants and did as the Lord told him. But because he was afraid of his family and the townspeople, he did it at night rather than in the daytime. I'm going to stop right there, and we're going to get right into this. I am not going to reveal the dream that I had, but I'm going to tell you what it meant. God is calling out his people that are hidden. These people were hidden on purpose by God. So you may not even realize your gifting yet. You may not even realize what God is calling you to, but you are being called out. You are being called out at a time like this because God is now telling you it's time for you to get in position. These people may be afraid. These people may be thinking like Gideon, I am the least the least qualified for where God is telling me to do or what God is telling me to do. So let's get into this because this is my message to you, to the hidden ones, okay? And the message that God wanted me to deliver. First, to the hidden, Gideon asked for proof. That was one of the first things that he did. And he said, let me go back to the verse so I can tell you exactly where I am. The Lord said, verse 17, Gideon replied, if now I have found favor in your eyes, give me a sign that it's really you talking to me. Please do not go away until I come back and bring back my offering. It is okay for you to say, God, if this is you, if you're really talking to me, can you let me know this is you? Because you may not even know the voice of the Lord yet, because you haven't ever heard it before. You've asked questions of what God sounds like, what it sounds like when God is telling you to do something. You've asked questions, and you may have been in church before. Maybe you have not been in church before. Maybe you've tuned into this broadcast and you're not even sure why you tuned into it, and you're not sure what to do next. This is for you. God is saying it's time for you to come out. It's time for you to come out of hiding. Hiding allows you to be in a safe place. So you are not attacked. You are not experiencing the warfare that you may experience when you come out. So it may be comfortable for you to go back into hiding, which is where we get the term backsliders, because it's easier to go back, to revert backwards, than to pushing forward. For this, you're going to have to push forward, because there are people depending on you to move into your calling. If we look at the book of Judges in chapter 2 and chapter 3, there was a reason why I read that before. Chapter 2, the people were enslaved, and the people were being oppressed, and they start crying out to God. There are people crying out that you will get into position and you will line up with where God is telling you to go. And so it is time for you to now do it. And it is time for you to step out on faith. So one of the things that Gideon did when he asked for proof, he didn't just ask for proof, but he said, God, can you stay here for a second and let me give you an offering? Let me prepare my offering and bring it out. It is time for you to give a sacrifice. That means I am giving something up. And that is sacrificing something within yourself that needs to die. And that is also you stepping in position and saying, God, I am giving up. I'm proving to you that I am 100% in, that I am laying down what was owed me, what I used to do. I'm laying that down to move into position of where you're calling me at. And there are some things in you that have to die. And so that is what you need to sacrifice at this time. What does that look like, God? What has to die in me? It could be that relationship that you're in. It could be that thing, whatever that you have brought up as an altar in the place of God, whatever takes position for him. It could be it can be sex, it can be drugs, it can be a lying spirit, it can be any of those things. Anything that takes the place of God, that will be the thing that needs to die in this season. It can't go with me as I continue to move on. And if you are not sure what that thing is, I'm going to tell you what's coming for that, to be able to help you identify it. All right. The next thing Gideon did, he stepped out on faith. You can't stay hidden. I don't care how comfortable it is. I don't care how you like, I'm used to this, I'm accustomed to this. And normally that's what keeps us in certain places, is because I know what to expect. When I move into where God called me to be in, I don't know what to expect on that side. I know what's in my mind, what this should look like and what I think it looks like, but I'm not sure that I can even have it. Gideon began to give God reasons in the beginning in chapter 6 of why he is not qualified for where God was telling him, I'm calling you to. I can't be a mighty warrior because I'm the least of my family, and my clan is the least clan. We're not even the strongest, and we're being oppressed. There are a million reasons that you can give God for why I can't follow you, God. There are all kind of reasons of why you can give God for why I can't step into position. I can't be this position that you're calling me in. I can't be the apostle, the elder, the teacher, the evangelist. I can't go start telling people about you. I can't give up my life and sacrifice to you because of this issue. And that would be your thing that needs to be sacrificed. If you're questioning what it is, it's that thing. Whatever it is that's holding you back from moving in position where God has called you to, that is the thing that has to die. That's what you have to put on the altar. But God is saying that it's time for you to step out of hiding. You won't be able to move in the areas effectively where he's calling you until you start moving out on faith. And faith is just saying, God, yes, I don't know what it looks like. I don't know what it's going to end up being. All I know is you told me to move, so I'm going to move. The next thing, Gideon obeyed the command, even though it would cause an issue for him with his people and his family. What was the command God gave him? The very first thing he told him to do was tear down the altars at your father's house. not at somebody else's house, not go fight this person, not go steal this. He said, go do what I'm telling you. It's got to start in the house that you were raised first, in your father's house. Many of you people who are hidden right now, you are the bloodline breaker. And the first assignment is to cancel out, to tear down the altars in your family. God is not going to send you to go deal with somebody else's before you deal with your own mess first. You have got to deal with what's here first. And so you are the bloodline breaker. And in doing that, there is nothing that can be as intimidating for some people as opposed as standing up and saying, hey, this far no more. This will not happen for another generation. We are not going to lose any more children in this family to this. We are not going to lose any more mothers, fathers, uncles, nephews, sisters, brothers to this. Yeah, I understand we've always acted this way. Yes, I know we've always done it this way. Yes, I know we always thought like this, but this is the end of this. God is saying it stops here. And that is your position, hidden one, to be able to cause an end to what has been the norm in your generation. So God is saying that what's going to happen is you are the judge that he's calling now. If you look at Judges 2, that's exactly what happened. The people would begin to cry out, and then God would send a judge. There was somebody who would come in and would get the people out of captivity. There are some people who are captive, waiting and praying that God would send somebody, and the somebody that God is sending is you. It is you. You have to get into alignment, into position. So it's time for you to start lining up. Again, he called him. The first thing he had to do was tear down the altars in his father's house, which meant that there was a breaking of agreement. One of the things that I told you in the beginning, we are a deliverance ministry. Deliverance is actually breaking agreement with those things. And sometimes the agreements were not even made by you. Sometimes the agreements are the agreements that were made by your parents, your grandparents, your aunts, your uncles, other people who make agreements with demons and allow them access to the bloodline. And so these spirits have just been going from family member to family member. You looking at Uncle Joe and going, Uncle Joe always act like this, and cousin Cheryl do that, and brother this and sister that. And there are all these spirits that are just resonating in this bloodline. And the other thing that we teach in deliverance is spirits have groupings or families that they operate with. And so you will see a spirit, this spirit will come with this spirit. But because you've given access to this one, it opens the door to other demons to have access to your bloodline. And so sometimes there is a breaking that has to happen, and not sometimes, all the time. There is a breaking of agreement that must take place. This means that you say, I no longer line up with this. And as for me, my house, my family, we're breaking ties. And that's what this breaking took place in Judges 6. That's what happened when Gideon tore down the altars. It is time for you bloodline breakers. It is time for you hidden ones to get ready to break down some things and tear down some altars. And in order to do that, there is an equipping that needs to take place. And there is an agreement that must take place. So you must come into agreement and into submission with God and say, God, I will follow you. I will step out on faith and start moving. But in doing this, Gideon's first thought was, I'm going to do it, but I'm going to do it scared, but I'm still going to do it. So I'm going to do it in the cover of night so nobody will see me, so that nobody will say anything. Nobody will know it was me. I'm going to tear it down because God told me to tear it down, but I'm doing it at night because I'm scared. And sometimes when you walk by faith, there may be a little bit of fear as you're stepping out for the first time. I've often talked about this. The first time when Apostle told me, listen, God is calling you to ministry, I remember going, not me. Baby, if you knew who I was, no, not me. It's got to be somebody else. And I remember at one point I had started ministering and doing what I knew God was telling me to do. I knew I heard him audibly in what he was instructing me to do. And there was a point that I started to backtrack because fear started to well up inside of me. And I'm thinking, nope, I'm going to just sit on back on this one. God, I hear you, but I'm going to sit back. And I had Apostle come in and go, yeah, no, we're not operating in that. Come on out. because God told you this is where you're supposed to be. So you're going to line up and you're going to do what God told you to do. And so that was it for me. It wasn't, I'm allowing you to sit back for a second. And in my mind, I'm thinking, I just need a quick second to sit down. And she was like, no, that ain't going to happen. And so it really required me to continue to step. Faith, that's what it talks about in the Bible, faith being like a mustard seed, because in the beginning, it's very small. And I have to build it. It has to grow. And you grow it by facing adversity and continuing to stretch your faith muscle. I continue to push myself to where God is calling me from. And God doesn't always call you to small things. So in this manner, it may be a small thing to us tearing down the altar, but to him, it was a major thing. And then the next thing is even bigger than that. And then the next thing is even bigger than that, because that is how you grow your faith muscle. So many of you are going to step out and it's going to feel like a mountain that God is asking you to move, because I've never done this and I've never been challenged in this area. It's like going to the gym for the first time. When you first go to the gym and you work out the very first time, you may can run for a few minutes, but that's it. You may can lift a little bit of weight, but that's it. But over time, with you continuing to go into the gym, over time, you start to build up your muscles so you can maintain longer than you could previously. That is what's happening with your faith. It's going to take you continuing to work that thing out in order for you to be able to move where God is telling you to move. So to you, to the hidden ones, you can't stay hidden. This is your message, your call out season. God is saying it's time for you to get into position, and you're going to audibly start hearing the voice of God. You're going to know it was God calling you out, and he's going to give you the assignment that you are to do in this time. Now, to you, God is going to give a gift. And the gifting that he's going to give is the people who've been anointed to really mentor and really be able to nurture this group. And what I would call these people who were hidden, I would call you similar to a newborn. There are people who are in the nursery with these newborns who are able to nurture them, who are able to pour into them, who are able to lead and to guide them. And it is a calling. It is a gifting and a calling, and not everybody can do it. Not everybody can be on assignment in this role, because there are some people who will come into agreement and use their mouths to speak what God is saying in this season. And then there are others who will use their mouthpiece to tear them down. They will use their mouthpiece to tear them down, to remind that they will come into agreement with the same words that the enemy is saying to these hidden group. They will say those same things to them. Well, you can't go do this because you're right. You are the smallest in your family, and you're right. You are the least, and your tribe is the smallest, and these people got you oppressed. And you're right. You know, your background isn't perfect, and you're right. I mean, have you been to Bible college? I mean, didn't you just start going to church last night? Are you sure God called you, not somebody else? Because what we want is the person who looks like what we envision a person who is coming to rescue us should look like. I want the Superman, but I don't want the Clark Kent. I don't want the Steve Urkel. I don't want that little person who, in my mind, you don't look like what I think. When David was called and told he was going to be a king, he was out in the field. He didn't look like king material. When he went up against Goliath, he didn't look like soldier material. God is using the very people who don't look like what you want them to look like. They're not going to look like they're qualified. Their qualifications, their resume, you check their resume, it's not going to look like what you think you need in this season. And so because that person is not called to really be able to nurture this group, they will tear them to shreds. And so God is saying, I am protecting them with a specific person, a specific people who've been gifted to nurture them, to really be able to grow them up, to be that sounding board for them, to be able to speak the words that God is saying over those people. You're speaking it over them. You're going to be able to pray and intercede for them. You're going to be able to encourage them. You're going to be the person to uplift them. You are going to be the person to surround them. You're going to be the person to educate them. And God said, I called you for a purpose. And so you are going to be pulling them out. I see you pulling them up out of the ground because they're hidden. They're in caves. You're going to be pulling them up out. Come on, it's time for you to go. Let me get you to work. What I think about when I think about this and what I envisioned earlier was something like a drill sergeant. My son recently, my oldest son went to the Army, and the drill sergeant was there to get them prepared. I'm getting you prepared for what military life is going to look like. I'm getting you prepared for some of the challenges that you may face. And I'm not always soft with you. Sometimes I've got to be a little bit more assertive so you understand the severity and I get you ready for what's coming up next. These people that God has called to this special group, the nurturers, you are ready for this, the grooming process. For the hidden people, it may not feel comfortable all the time. It may not feel fluff. It may not feel like what you would envision it to feel like. I want somebody to be gentle all the time. It may not feel like that. Sometimes they're going to have to be assertive with you, but this does not mean you backtrack and move backwards because it's uncomfortable. They are getting you ready and prepared for the battle that's ahead of you. And in order to do that and to be able to withstand the enemy, sometimes you're going to have to handle a little pressure now. Because if you can't handle the pressure while you're going through the learning process, it'll be a lot harder for you to handle the pressure when you actually out there in the field, when you're actually on the battleground, when you're actually coming up against the enemy in opposition. It may cause you to break. And so I've got to get you groomed for it. So in order to get you in line and get you groomed for it, there are certain things that I have to do in this season. So to the nurturers, God said it's your time. It's not just the time for the hidden ones. It is your time too. It is your time to get ready, but God still has to be able to check you. He's got to be able to refine you. He's still got to teach you because you are going to be pouring into others. And if you are not careful with the pour, you'll get drained. So God said in this season, I've got to teach you how to refresh yourself. I've got to teach you how to refuel yourself so you don't try to pour from an empty vessel. And then you become upset because I'm drained and I'm tired. And so God said, you've had time to rest. Now it's time for you to move. It's time for you to flow. It's time for you to go. The third group that I have a message for, and I've already touched on it a little bit, but I want to address it wholeheartedly, is for the people who are surrounding this group. These are the people who are not only there to hold the nurturers up, but you are also there to hold up the hidden ones. Your job is to surround both parties. It is very important that you stay diligent in your role because the enemy is trying to keep you distracted. If I can distract you, it makes it easier for me to get inside of this circle, to get to the nurturer and to get to the hidden one, and I can stop the assignment, which is what the enemy wants to do. So you almost got to be like around them, surrounding them, and you have got to be on guard. You have got to, as Apostle says all the time, and I love when she says this, you have got to be a sharpshooter in the spirit, which means you've got to see the enemy from afar off and know how he's coming, when he's coming to attack this group. But you also got to make sure your words are seasoned in this season. You can't afford to be able to speak out what the enemy is pouring into you because you will damage the process that's taking place in the middle of this circle. So you've got to make sure you've got your spiritual ears open. You've got to make sure you got your spiritual eyes attentive. You got to make sure you got a prayer life going. You got to make sure you stay in your word. You got to make sure you're encouraging the group. I got to make sure I'm telling to the nurturer, God has called you for this. You remain steady. You remain in there, and I'm lifting you up while at the same time I'm telling the hidden person, yeah, I know what you've been through and I know what you're going through, but I believe God has ordained this person to help you get to the next level, and I'm gonna keep a praise going for you. So even when you start to feel like falling back, I'm still going to speak a word to you to keep you on fire and keep that thing going. That is going to be your role. You have got to be very careful of the words that you allow to come from your lips because you are too close to the circle. So when the enemy starts to speak to them and starts to tell the hidden one, you ain't nothing, you ain't never gonna be nothing, you're not looking at the outside exterior and summing up what you think they are not capable of doing. When they start to speak and say, God has called me to this thing, you are not using your mouthpiece to come into agreement or curse what God is trying to do in their lives because you don't look like what I think you should look like. You don't have the qualifications that I think you should have. It is not because of my qualifications that God put me in the position he put me in. He put me in here because my spirit remained humble. Because I said I gave God a yes. I gave him a wholehearted yes. And God, I'll keep moving. Even if I'm scared, I'm going to keep moving. And I thank God for the people that are surrounding me. I thank God for that. I thank God for the people that continue to pray. And in this season, that is exactly what we need. And then it's going to cause for a spiritual discernment. People on the outside, that is what you're going to be praying for, because you're going to have to ask God, show me the people who the enemy is using to try to get close to this circle. The people that the enemy has put on assignment to get in here and stop the flow of God. Help me see them in the spirit so I know what they're coming in with, and I can jump in the middle of that and go, not today, Satan. You're not going to stop the flow of God. As the nurturer continues to help the babes in Christ get stronger and build up their faith muscles, the enemy is going to try anything he can to come in and distract, to disrupt, to divide what is taking place. And so for those people on the outside of the circle, you are going to have to be looking to and fro, trying to figure out, okay, wait, what's going on? Where the enemy coming from? Oh, I heard this is coming. God, thank you for revealing that to me. Now I know how we need to pray. Everybody, let's come together and pray against this spirit. God has already revealed this is what's coming in. That's going to be your assignment. So to the three groups, I'm telling you, God said your assignment is now taking place. It's now taking place. You are now in position. You are going to have to ask God, which one am I? Am I the hidden? Am I the nurturer? Or am I in the supporting circle? And each one of them has a critical role to the mandate that God is placing at this time. Each one of them plays a critical piece, and you're going to need to know, what part do I play? Don't mess up the progress of God trying to play a role that God did not call you to. Because I don't like this part, I want to play that part, so I'm going to go over there and do that and get out of order. God did not call you to that. It's going to take discernment to understand, and an open ear. God, let me hear from you. And I need to know the voice of the Lord. So I'm not getting confused by the enemy when the enemy is telling me something that flows against what God is saying in this season. I need to be in alignment and understanding of where God is telling me to move to. And that's where you need to be. So God, what are you telling me? What is my role in this season? Help me understand it. If I'm the one who's supposed to be on the outskirts, God, give me the word that we're supposed to stand on. Give me the prayer points that we're supposed to pray. God, help me understand where the enemy is coming from. If I'm the nurturer, God, show me where the people are that you're calling me to nurture in this season. Show me where the hidden ones are, God. Help me understand how to continue to speak into them, because some of them may not even recognize who they are. They may have their ears blocked still going, God ain't called me. He called somebody else. He definitely didn't call me. So to not get weary in well-doing and become so upset because this person won't move, and I know God is telling them to move, but they won't do it. They keep walking backwards. So I just give up, God, and I just throw up my hands. I'm tired. I ain't doing this no more. We can't afford it. We can't afford it. God, help me to remain diligent in this season. Help me to remain steadfast in this season, God. Help me to remain where you tell me to be. Let me be in position in this season. To the nurturers, you are going to be like a drill sergeant, as I said. Sometimes you're going to be able to be easy flowing, and sometimes you're going to have to be a little firmer. And you're going to have to ask God where the balance is. Show me what I need to do. Do I need to be a little firmer in this right now in this situation? Or God, is this where I nurture in this situation? And it's going to take both. It's going to take balance. Okay. All right. So that is the message for tonight, the prophetic word. Again, I'm Cunningham. I am with the DREEMM team. Again, DREEMM, for those who do not know what DREEMM stands for, it is Deliverance, Restoration, Education, and Empowerment for Me Ministries. Again, our website is www.dreem.org. If you are somebody and you're going, listen, I'm one of the hidden ones. I know I'm one. It's my sister. She's one of the hidden ones. My niece is one of the hidden ones. My cousin, my brother is one of the hidden ones. I know this was for me. I want you to go ahead and send this message to who you think it was supposed to be for. I'm going to ask you to share it so that they can see this message. And if somebody shared this message with you and said, this you, she talking to you, I want you to get in touch with us. And I want you to send us a message. I'm actually going to put the email address on here. I want you to send us a message. I'm one of the hidden ones. I'm who you talking to. We want to pray with you. We want to make sure we connect with you, and we want to try to connect you. If it's not our ministry that you're supposed to be connected to, we want to help you find the ministry and the nurturer that you are supposed to be connected to. If you are somebody going, hey, Kai, listen, I need to go through deliverance. Listen, when you talked about bloodline breaker, I know we got some stuff. We got some stuff in our family, and I need all of this to be tore up. I need to tear down some altars in my family. I need some stuff to not pour out on my children. I'm seeing some things exhibited in the generations that I'm going, no, not I don't want that. No, I don't want no parts of that. So if that is you, I want you to go to our website. We have a deliverance tab at the top of the website. That is where you sign up for deliverance. If you're somebody going, I absolutely know I need it. It's me, oh Lord. I know it's me. I want you to sign up for deliverance and fill out the packet. The packet will come over to our team. Our team will be able to get that information. We will contact you and set up a consultation and then go from there. We'll tell you the process after that. If you have any questions for us, feel free to email us and we can answer and address any questions that you may have. And again, I said I was going to keep it under 30 minutes. I just saw it's 40. I'm so sorry. I apologize, y'all, but I had to get that message out. And I apologize for it not being 30, for saying it was going to be 30 and it wasn't. I apologize for that, but not for the message. You guys have a blessed and prosperous night, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye, everybody.